Hey everyone, I'm Rishabh and this is my GenAI Capstone project for Kaggle. I built the tool that reviews documentation changes in GitHub pull requests using Gemini model. And if you are like me who tend to skip reviewing documentation, this tool might be useful. So I want to be honest, when reviewing a PR, my attention goes to the code. I check the logic, test, maybe performance tweaks. But documentations, you generally just skim over them and you don't pay that much attention to them. So that might be a issue in production. So with this tool, I hope to solve that issue of looking into documentation so that this tool helps me out with it. It reviews the grammar, it reviews the spellings, and then it suggests the changes. So let's go ahead and look at the tool and how to use it. The first thing that you want to do is go and set up your GitHub token and Google API. You can copy this notebook and edit it at your end. And if you're doing so, you will have to go in add-ons, create secret, and then you will have to create a GitHub token and a Google API key. Google API key can be obtained from AI Studio and the GitHub token from your actual GitHub account. So let's go ahead and run this section. You attach it. Then you would want to install the necessary libraries. What we are using is PyGithub for interacting with GitHub and then Google Generative AI. I'm not going to run it right now because they are already installed packages and it takes a little bit of time. Now you create this particular cell, get docs files from PR. Basically, it takes your PR URL and obtains all the files that are of ending with .md, .txt, .rst, or .py, and if there is any kind of documentation in that file, uh, this section is going to work on that. So all in all, you just get all the documentation from one URL that you have for the PR. The next section is actually going to set up the Gemini model. We are going to use Gemini 2.0, but you have a complete list of Gemini model. Let me go ahead and run this section. These are all the models that are available, but we are just going to work with Gemini 2.0. Then we initiate the model and we start chatting with that model. Right here, the prompt that we send decide what's going to happen. So the prompt we are sending is show the original, explain what is the wrong with that grammatical error and then suggest the corrected line. We are using Gemini 2.0, so it's not super efficient, but if I change the model to Gemini 1.5 Pro or 2.0 Pro, the Pro models are much better. But with the free tier, it comes with a time constraint, so that's just not the most practical one to use here. So let's go ahead and run this. We engineer our prompt here, and then we send the request to our model, and I have set a time limit. If we are uh, hitting the rate limit, then it gives it another shot. So let's go ahead and do that. Now we are going to actually define the review class. So this document reviewer agent is going to take the differences uh, that you get in a PR. So whatever the changes are made, and then it's going to review those changes for grammar and spelling errors. This is the section that's going to interact with the Gemini, basically. Um, Ideally, you would want to have this section the ability to choose which file to review. So when running in production, this section should be uncommented and you should be able to interact with it. Here we are using the default first file, and that's because of the constraints that I have with the capstone that it should run end to end. So let's give it a shot. Uh, we run the class and finally we interact with this class. So again, ideally, you would want the PRL to be an input, and that's what we did here. You can comment it out and play with it and see if you are able to send it to any PR or not. If you are choosing this route, my suggestion will be to use Gemini 2.0 Pro or Gemini 1.5 Pro. But with the Flash model, I will suggest to just go with this one that we have used here. But feel free to experiment with it. So let's go ahead and run it, and hopefully we should see the suggestion the error, the suggestion, why it is, and then the corrected thing. So this works fine. Now, the next thing that I want to touch upon is some of the hyperparameters. I'm not using it here, but Gemini provides the ability to tune the hyperparameters. You have temperature, top K, and top P. Temperature close to 0 means always consistent answer, and closer to 1 means less consistent and more creative and diverse and risky responses. So something that I played around here, this works very fine for this kind of application. If you want to play around with it, just uncomment this part and see what happens. Uh, so at this stage, we were able to see the responses, but the responses had one issue. They're not very structured. So now I would want to try some more structured response. So I changed the prompt to give me the response in JSON structure. And let's just go ahead and run this section. Basically, you modify the prompt to say, okay, this kind of response is needed. Have a line number, what is the original, what is the issue, what is the suggestion, and so on. Let's go ahead and do that. And then again, we have the same documentation reviewer agent class. What we defined above works fine as well. But what we really want to do is this time return a more of a dictionary so that we can parse it better. So let's go ahead and do that. And this is where we start to call our uh, pull request. You can already see that I ran it and it's able to give me that on line 5. It sees this error where the original was for TensorFlow version prior to this, prior this is this, and the CUDA paths. The issue is that the grammar is not correct, and then we should have the word prior to. So the suggestion is for TensorFlow version prior to. Now this makes it easy for me to actually go into the PR and make a comment over there if somebody has done it. So this is the section that's going to do this. Uh, but this right now is not a true interactive bot. And a true interactive bot will not just review one at a time or one of the file at a time, but should have the ability to communicate with as many files as you want. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's uncomment this section. This lower section allows you to create a completely interactive bot. But if I want to do it, I want to make some small changes in my previous code. Uh, the suggestion that I have is to use a Gemini Pro model and then have some more ability to work around with it. So let's go ahead and create a Gemini Pro model rather than Gemini 2.0 Flash. So for this purpose, we have Gemini. I'm going to use Gemini 1.5 Pro. So let's go ahead and do that. 1.5 Pro model. Okay, there we go. We initiated the chat. Uh, then I want to change the index so that I have the ability to interact and choose which index I want. And then uh, I'm going to do the same for the next function that I have, which might look a little redundant, but they serve two different purposes. So for what purpose we want, let's go ahead and do that. And then right here, I should be able to interact with it. So let's go ahead and input our URL. The URL that we have is this one. So let's copy that URL from here. Let's go ahead and copy it. And we are going to pass it to this. And hopefully it should give us the ability to see two files and it asks for the input. Now, if you want to get out of this chatbot, you are probably going to input Q here. But I want to see if I can first review file 0, which is contributing.md. Uh, and I see a very good structured response. And as you can see, because we use Pro model, it's a little better. And what it does, it gives me multiple suggestions, not just one. Let's go ahead and review second file as well and see what it has to say. There we go. And it suggests one more suggestion here. And now if I want to exit out of this chatbot, I'm going to hit Q. So this is probably the best function of this AI bot. Um, Once you have, documentations coming in when if you have reviews that are gonna be loaded with documentations, new addition or changes in the documentations, uh, you can run this bot, use this bot to find suggestions. So what we do, to sum it up, we use a Gemini 2.0 Flash for my Kaggle submission, and it goes into finding the structured output, um, send a PR to the system, to the Gemini model, and get its feedback, shows the issues with it and corrected part. A more refined and a better version is, of course, going to be Gemini 1.5 Pro. And we can give it a shot here as well. We can see what Gemini 1.5 Pro does when we are using it here. So let's go ahead and let's, comment out this part again and see if we get anything from Gemini 2.0, Gemini 1.5 Pro when we run it here. So there we go. That looks pretty decent to me. Uh, and let's do that here as well then. So let's go ahead and comment out this part and let's run this section. There we go. So my assumption is that 1.5 Pro is going to perform fairly better than 2.0 Flash because of a deeper model, more understanding, and it shows, okay, original is this, issue is this, suggestion is this. Still better than what we have before, but not as good as what we see when we have a structured output in the form of JSON, where you can actually see the exact line number. So overall, I would like to wrap it and say this is what's my capstone project for Gen AI intensive course. The motivation was to reduce my workload and use it to review PR in my day-to-day job. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you will use this tool to build to review your PRs. Um, Hopefully down the line I'm gonna look into future ideas in the sense of having the ability to review the uh, diagrams that we get, the model diagrams, the workflow diagrams, having the ability to also review code, and hopefully as correctly as possible, and maybe even make it specific for the use case of the individual organizations. Thank you, everyone.